He walked out of the cafe certain the night was a quiet failure, just another reminder of how love felt distant after loss. He didn't know fate was only getting started, and that the woman about to step into his life would challenge everything he believed about timing, healing, and second chances. Mornings always started before the sun, long before the city felt awake. He moved quietly through the kitchen, careful not to wake the one person who mattered most. Coffee brewed while toast burned slightly, the smell mixing with the hum of an ordinary life built on careful routines. "Dad, you're up early again," came a sleepy voice from the hallway. "Couldn't sleep," he replied. "You want eggs or cereal?" "Eggs," his child said, rubbing tired eyes. "You work late tonight." "Just a little." He smiled, the kind meant to reassure. "I'll be back before bedtime." They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that came from years of shared mornings. He watched small hands push food around the plate, thinking how quickly time moved and how much responsibility lived in those moments. Being needed gave him purpose, but it also left little space for anything else. "You nervous about tonight?" the child asked suddenly. He paused. "Why would I be nervous? You said you had a date." He exhaled slowly. "It's not really a date. Just coffee. Mom used to say coffee dates mattered." The child said, not unkindly. He looked away. "That was a long time ago." "Still counts," came the quiet answer. The drive to work passed in a blur of traffic lights and half-remembered thoughts. He told himself this blind date meant nothing, that it was just something friends insisted he try. He hadn't been looking for love. He'd been surviving, building a steady world where nothing unexpected could break what he'd worked so hard to protect. At the office, coworkers teased him gently. "Big plans tonight?" someone asked. "Just coffee," he said again. "That's how it starts," another voice joked. He smiled politely, but his chest felt tight. Starting something meant risking something, and risk had taken enough from him already. The cafe was warm and crowded, filled with low conversations and clinking cups. He arrived early, choosing a corner table where he could see the door. His phone buzzed with a message. "She'll be wearing a blue scarf," the text read. He scanned the room, nerves creeping in despite himself. Minutes passed. He checked the time. 10 minutes late turned into 20. His coffee cooled, untouched. A woman approached, smiling uncertainly. "Are you waiting for someone?" "Yes," he said. "I think so." She hesitated. "I'm not sure this is my table." "Oh," he replied quickly. "Sorry." She walked away, and embarrassment settled heavy in his stomach. He told himself not to care, but disappointment had a way of slipping through even the strongest defenses. Finally, a woman with a blue scarf entered, glanced around, then frowned at her phone. She sat across from him without much warmth. "Hi," she said flatly. "Hi," he answered. The conversation struggled from the start. Polite questions, shallow answers, pauses that felt too long. He talked about work. She talked about travel. Nothing connected. "This was probably a bad idea," she said at last. He nodded. "Yeah, I think so. I should go," she added, already standing. "Of course." She left without looking back. He stared at the empty chair, feeling foolish for expecting anything different. He paid for his coffee and stood, heart heavier than when he arrived. Outside, the night air was cool. He walked a few steps, then stopped, frustration rising. He'd tried. That had to count for something. Still, the familiar ache returned, the sense that life had moved on without him. "You look like someone who just survived a disaster," a voice said behind him. He turned, surprised. A woman stood there, holding a small bag, eyes kind but curious. "Feels accurate," he replied. "Bad date?" she asked. "Pointless." She laughed softly. "Those are the worst kind." "Are you offering sympathy or judgment?" he asked. "Neither," she said. "Just honesty." They stood there, strangers sharing a moment. He didn't know why he didn't walk away. Something about her calm made him stay. "I'm late," she said, checking her watch. "Story of my life. Meeting someone?" he asked. Yes, a blind date. He smiled without thinking. Good luck. Thanks, she said, then paused. You're not. He shook his head. Already failed. She studied him, then smiled slowly. Funny. What is? I think you might be the one I'm late to meet. His breath caught. What? She held up her phone. Single dad. Coffee. Corner table. He stared at her, disbelief mixing with something warmer. You're joking. I wish, she said. Traffic was awful. He laughed, surprised by the sound. I thought it was over. Looks like it's just starting, she replied. For the first time that night, he felt something shift. Not hope, not yet, but curiosity. And maybe that was enough to stay. They stood there for a moment longer than necessary, the city moving around them while something quieter settled in the space between them. So, she said, folding her arms against the cool air, do we pretend we didn't just almost miss each other? He smiled, unsure but lighter than before. I think we have to. Otherwise the universe might feel embarrassed. She laughed, an easy sound. Fair enough. Should we go back in, or has that table already judged us? Let's give it another chance, he said. Worst case, we get warmer coffee. Inside, the cafe felt different now. Less crowded, less loud. They sat across from each other, not as strangers this time, but not quite anything else either. I'm sorry I was late, she said. I hate starting things like that. I'm sorry I assumed it was over, he replied. Guess we're even. She tilted her head. You really thought the night was done? Yes, he said honestly. I don't usually expect second chances. That sounds heavy, she said gently. Comes with the territory, he answered. Single dad life. Her expression softened. You have a child. Yes. How old? Hey. She smiled. That's a good age. Old enough to ask hard questions. He laughed quietly. Too good at that. They ordered fresh coffee. This time, the silence between questions didn't feel awkward. It felt thoughtful. So, she said, why did you agree to a blind date? He considered the question. Because people kept telling me it was time, and you didn't believe them. No. She nodded slowly. I get that. Do you? He asked. Yes, she said. I lost someone too. The words landed carefully, not dramatic, not rushed. Just honest. I'm sorry, he said. Me too, she replied. It changes how you show up to things. It makes you cautious, he said. It makes you tired, she added. He met her eyes. Exactly. They talked about small things after that. Favorite foods, places they used to love and stopped visiting for no clear reason. She spoke about moving cities, starting over more than once. He talked about routines, about building a life that didn't wobble. You sound like someone who likes control, she said. I like stability, he corrected. There's a difference. Is there? She asked, smiling. Yes, he said. Control is about fear. Stability is about care. She thought about that. You've had to be strong for someone else. Every day. That kind of strength is lonely, she said. He didn't answer right away. It can be. The cafe lights dimmed slightly as the evening deepened. Neither of them noticed the time. I should probably go, she said eventually, though her voice lacked conviction. Me too, he replied, equally unconvincing. They stood again, closer this time. The moment felt delicate, like something that could disappear if named. I'm glad I was late, she said. So am I, he answered. I think I needed to believe things don't always end when I expect them to. She smiled at that. Maybe they just changed shape. Outside, the street was quieter now. He hesitated, then spoke. Can I ask you something? Yes. What made you stay? After realizing I wasn't great at first impressions. She laughed softly. Because you looked disappointed, not bitter. There's a difference. He absorbed that, feeling seen in a way that unsettled him. Would you like to do this again? He asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, yes. Slowly. He nodded. Slow sounds good. They exchanged numbers, a simple act that felt heavier than it should have. As she walked away, she turned back. Next time, she said, no assumptions. Deal, he replied. On the drive home, his phone buzzed. How was the date? The message read. He typed, paused, then wrote back. Unexpected. When he got home, the house was quiet. He checked on his child, sleeping peacefully. He stood there longer than usual, thinking about how fragile and strong life could be at the same time. In the kitchen, he sat at the table, replaying the evening. He wasn't hopeful exactly, but he wasn't closed either. His phone buzzed again. I made it home, her message said. Thanks for not walking away. He smiled, typing back. Thanks for arriving. He set the phone down, heart steady but awake. For the first time in a long while, tomorrow didn't feel like something to endure. It felt like something to meet. And that thought stayed with him as the house settled into silence, carrying with it the quiet promise that some beginnings don't announce themselves loudly. They simply wait until you're ready to notice. The second date didn't feel like a date at all. It felt like a pause in the middle of busy lives, carved out carefully, almost nervously. They met at a small park near his house. Late afternoon sun stretching shadows across the grass. He arrived early again, hands in his pockets, watching parents push swings and children chase each other without worry. You live close, she said as she walked up beside him. Close enough to hear the playground from my kitchen, he replied. That doesn't bother you? No, he said. It reminds me why I stay. They sat on a bench, leaving just enough space between them to feel respectful and unsure at the same time. So, she said, this is where real life lives. This is where responsibility lives, he corrected. Real life is messier. She smiled. Messy doesn't scare me. He looked at her, weighing whether to believe that. It should. Why? Because I don't come alone, he said quietly. I know, she replied, and I wouldn't want you to. The honesty in her voice unsettled him more than resistance would have. He shifted, staring at the ground. I don't want to hurt anyone, he said. Especially not my child. She nodded. That fear makes sense. And I don't want to promise something I can't give. I'm not asking for promises, she said. Just presence. That word lingered. Presence was harder than commitment in some ways. It required showing up without armor. They talked until the sky softened into evening. He told her about school lunches and bedtime stories, about learning how to braid hair and cook dinners that wouldn't be refused. She listened without interrupting, without trying to fix anything. You love deeply, she said. I had to learn how, he replied. And before? She asked gently. Before, it came easily, he said. Now it comes carefully. She understood that too well. As days passed, messages became part of his routine. Nothing dramatic. Just check-ins, shared thoughts, small pieces of the day. It felt safe until it didn't. One evening, his child watched him smile at his phone. Is that her? The small voice asked. Yes, he said, then hesitated. Does that bother you? The child shrugged. You don't smile like that anymore. I like it. His chest tightened. You do? Yeah, came the answer. You look less tired. That night, guilt crept in where warmth had been. He wondered if he was being selfish, chasing something new while protecting something sacred. The doubt followed him into the next week, growing louder when plans had to be rescheduled because of work or school or exhaustion. I feel like I'm fitting into the cracks of your life, she said one evening, not accusing, just honest. He swallowed. That's all I have right now. I know, she said. I just need to know if those cracks will ever widen. He didn't answer fast enough. I'm not asking you to choose, she added. I just don't want to disappear slowly. That was the night distance crept in. Messages slowed. Conversations became careful again. He told himself it was for the best. Protection masqueraded as wisdom when fear was involved. Days later, she sent a message. Can we talk? They met at the same cafe where everything had started. The table felt smaller this time. I don't need certainty, she said. I need honesty. He nodded, hands folded tightly. I'm scared. Of me? No, he said quickly. Of failing. Of inviting someone in and realizing I don't know how to balance everything. You don't have to balance perfectly, she said. Just truthfully. I don't know if I can give you what you deserve, he said. She leaned back, eyes steady. That's not your decision alone. Silence settled, heavy but necessary. I'm not asking to replace anything, she continued. I'm asking to be allowed to grow beside it. He felt the weight of her words. Growth meant uncertainty. It meant letting life change shape again. I need time, he said. She nodded slowly. I can give time. I can't give myself away while waiting. I understand, he said, though his voice cracked. They stood to leave. This goodbye felt different, unfinished. That night, he sat at the kitchen table long after bedtime. He thought about routines, about safety, about how stillness had protected him but also isolated him. In the quiet, his child padded into the room. You okay? The small voice asked. I don't know, he admitted. The child climbed into the chair beside him. You don't have to be scared all the time. He blinked. How do you know that? Because you tell me that, came the simple reply. He pulled the child close, realizing the truth he'd been avoiding. Strength wasn't avoiding pain. It was choosing honesty even when it scared you. He picked up his phone and typed. I'm scared, he wrote, but I don't want fear to decide for me. A few minutes passed. Then her reply came. That's all I needed to hear. He exhaled, feeling something loosen inside his chest. Nothing was fixed. Nothing was guaranteed. But something was chosen. And that felt like the bravest thing he'd done in a long time. The morning after he sent that message, the house felt different. Not louder, not brighter, just lighter, as if something unspoken had finally been allowed to breathe. He made breakfast without rushing. When his child wandered in, hair messy, eyes half open, he didn't immediately check the time or his phone. You're quiet today, the child said. Thinking, he replied. Good thinking or bad thinking? He smiled. Honest thinking. The child nodded as if that explained everything. Later that day, she suggested a walk. Nothing formal, nothing planned, just a walk. They met near the same park, leaves scattered across the path. The air carried that calm stillness that came before change. I didn't know if you'd come, she said. I wasn't sure either, he admitted, but I didn't want to keep hiding. They walked side by side, hands close but not touching. I'm not fixed, he said after a while. I still get scared. I still doubt myself. She looked at him. I wasn't looking for fixed. I worry about what this means for my child, he continued. About letting someone into a life that already feels full. I don't want to replace anything, she said softly. I want to add, only if there's room. He stopped walking. There is room. I just forgot how to see it. That was the first time he reached for her hand. It wasn't dramatic, just real. Over the next weeks, life didn't suddenly become easier. Schedules clashed. Exhaustion returned. But something shifted in how he faced it all. He didn't feel like he was carrying everything alone. The first time she came over, it wasn't a grand introduction. Just dinner. Just laughter over burned pasta. This smells like effort, she joked. That's my specialty, he replied. His child watched carefully, curious but calm. So, the child said, you're the late coffee lady. She laughed. Guilty. You're nicer in person, came the blunt assessment. He held his breath. I'll take that, she said warmly. Later, after bedtime, he stood in the hallway, unsure. You don't have to explain everything, she said. I'm not here to rush anyone. I know, he replied. I just want to do this right. Doing it right doesn't mean doing it perfectly, she said. It means staying. Staying was the hardest part. Staying when doubt whispered. Staying when old grief resurfaced. Staying when it would be easier to retreat into routine. One evening, weeks later, He admitted something he'd never said out loud. "I still miss her," he said quietly. She didn't flinch. "I know. Sometimes I feel guilty for being happy." She turned to him. "Love doesn't erase love. It expands." He felt tears rise, unguarded. "I don't want to forget." "You won't," she said. "You're just continuing." That night, he slept deeply for the first time in years. Life continued in small moments. Shared meals, school pickups, late conversations when the house was quiet. She didn't force herself into their world. She waited, listened, adjusted. One afternoon, his child handed him a drawing. 3 figures, holding hands. "You can hang it if you want," the child said quickly. "Or not." He swallowed hard. "I want to." Later, when she saw it on the fridge, she didn't comment. She just smiled. Months passed. Not without conflict. Not without fear. But with choice. One evening, they sat on the porch, watching the sky fade. "I used to think my life was already decided," he said, "like the story was written." "And now?" she asked. "Now I think maybe I just stopped reading too early." She leaned against him. "Some chapters only make sense later." He looked at her, really looked at her. "Thank you for arriving when you did." She smiled. "Thank you for staying." Inside, his child laughed at something on television. The sound felt like home. He realized then that healing wasn't about moving on. It was about moving forward without leaving parts of yourself behind. Love didn't arrive loudly. It didn't demand space. It waited, patient, until he was ready to notice it. And when he did, it felt less like a miracle and more like truth. Some stories don't end when you think they do. Sometimes, they begin exactly there. He finally understood that love wasn't something that replaced the past, and it wasn't something that arrived to fix him. It came quietly, with patience, asking only for honesty and the courage to stay. What he once thought was an ending had simply been a pause, a moment where life waited for him to be ready again. As the house filled with familiar laughter and new memories, he realized that healing didn't mean forgetting who he had been. It meant allowing himself to become someone new without losing what mattered most. And in that quiet certainty, he knew the blind date hadn't arrived late at all. It had arrived exactly when his heart was finally open.